Hello everyone, thank you for watching this video. In this video, I am going to answer a couple of interview questions which are being asked for one of the user in the YouTube, and they reached out to me and asked for some assistance. I will try to elaborate as much as I can for these questions. So these are the top 10 questions that are being asked for that user. We'll start with the question number one. How can you ensure high availability for critical VMs? So most of you guys are already aware of the answer for this, but if I put them in an example here, um, so here, let's say the question number one, if I put this, how can you ensure the VMs are highly available? Okay, so before we answer this question, let us try to understand what situations your VMs are not highly available. What are the different use cases where your virtual machines or critical virtual machines are not highly available? Then we will try to understand how can we avoid these problems. Okay, so as you know that your virtual machine is running in the Microsoft Azure data center, and this is running on a physical server in the data center. Okay, this is on a physical server which is being managed by Microsoft. So let me just say this is the physical server, and on top of this you have your virtual machine. Okay, critical, or I would say, let's say your web server. Okay, and the first scenario could be, I'm going to categorize as, you know, platform failures or issues. These can be the causes where your virtual machine may not be available. The platform failures can be Azure outages, which means the physical server which where your virtual machine is running is down. Okay, why it is down? It could be the server is on a hung status, maybe it is experiencing some performance issues. Probably it went through a patching and it's not coming online. Probably, it could be issue where the network adapter is not working, which is also associated with the physical server. Probably there could be issue with the power supply. So basically the physical server is in a degraded status. Okay, that could be one of the reason why this outage will occur and why your virtual machine will not be highly available. Okay, so another thing is there could be some planned maintenance that is happening at Microsoft. Okay, the planned maintenance, because of the planned maintenance, the physical server might be rebooted and your virtual machine might be rebooted because of that. That's one of the reason why your virtual machine is not available. So if I say one is a planned maintenance, the other one is the unexpected downtime. We also say it's an outage, right? Because of these two reasons, your virtual machine may not be available at a high level, right? And it's not always the physical server that is being down, right? When it comes to the virtual machine, it has three components. One is the compute, that is where your physical server is sitting. There is another one is storage, the other one is the network. So these three resource providers, okay, compute resource provider, and if I say in short, network resource provider and the storage resource provider. Okay, and on the storage resource provider, you have your disk, your OS disk, and you have your data disks that are storing. And network resource provider, you have your virtual machine NIC and IP addressing, all right, and all these things are coming from them. In case if there is an issue at a storage end, if the one of the disk is not online, let's say OS disk is not online, though the physical server is allocating CPU memory to your virtual machine, if the operating system is not online, there's no point of VM being running, right? So it's an outage for you again. And when it comes to the network resource provider, in case if there is any fault in NIC, maybe if there is an issue at a network rack or network switches at Microsoft backend system, your NIC won't be available, and because of that, your virtual machine will not be online. So these are the couple of issues that you might experience when you are working in the cloud environment. So this is like platform failures or issues. That's a criteria one, right? And we call them as Azure outages or client maintenance. Okay, if it is the compute issues, we have a solution ready which we can propose to your customer. But if it is a storage or if it is a network, you don't have the ready-made solution. You have to live with it. Okay, so if it is a compute, what we suggest is, okay, you have to keep two or more VMs. Two or more VMs in a availability set or availability zone. So with this, what happens is Microsoft will ensure that if it is availability set, okay, within the same data center, your virtual machines, two or more virtual machines, are not running in the same physical server. And that again, within the data center, the VMs will be spread across a different racks. In case if one of the rack is not available or one of the physical server is not available because of an issue at compute side, right? The could be a power failure, could be a network failures to the physical server, could be some other issue, right? And one VM won't be available, but you have another machine that is available, which can take your application requirements or users request. So if it is in the same data center, that's the with the availability set, you have your virtual machines in the running in the same data center, but between the different racks or different nodes. When it comes to the availability zone, within the same region, you have a data center 1 and data center 2. We call it as a zone 1 and zone 2. So the VM1 will be in zone 1 and VM2 will be in zone 2. In case if there is any data center level failures, you have the virtual machine in a different data center, which can provide the high availability for your customer. And this is again within a one region. So if I specify a little bit more, East US is one of the region. Okay, and within the region you have a data center 1 and data center 2. Okay, data center 2. So if I say, and this is again in the same region, East US is the region. So if I'm thinking about availability set, what happens is your two virtual machines will be in the same data center in a different racks. Okay, this is a VM1 and this is going to be your VM2 in a different rack. In case if there is a rack level failure or a host level failure or node level failure, one VM will be down. You have another VM which can take your customer's request. But what if this entire data center level failure happens? Availability set may not be able to may not be the right solution for you. That's why. So they introduce the availability zone concept. So you can keep your VM1 in data center one of the rack it will be sitting, the VM1 will be sitting, and another VM will be in another data center. Okay, there in one of the node or a rack, your VM2 will be sitting. In case if something happened to one of the node or a rack or maybe entire data center, you have the VM running in a different data center, which can provide high availability for your customers. So with this concept, you can ensure that your critical VMs are highly available. But again, what if this entire region is down, right? If the entire region is down, you need to look for the disaster recovery solutions. So by default, Microsoft will not be able to provide you the disaster recovery solution. What you need to do is you need to plan for the DR solution. So Microsoft has a service called ASR. So with the help of ASR, what you can do is during the disaster situations, let's say East US region, okay, if entire region is not accessible because a global outage, or maybe the entire region outage at Microsoft, could be DNS issues, could be some network issues, right? If the entire region is down, you can fail over the VMs from one region to another region, let's say Central US, okay, Central US. So if you fail over to Central US, the virtual machine will be available in the Central US location, and they will be able to provide access to your customers or users. They will be able to respond to the users queries. So this is like region level outages. So within the region you have a data center level outage, and to fulfill them you have availability zone, and within the region, if the region level outages happens, you have ASR, which can bring up your virtual machines in the another region. Okay, so that's how we provide high availability for your virtual machines. And there could be a follow-up question: how do you set up, did you work on it, and what is your current setup looks like? Okay, so if I summarize that, right, so if I take an example of similar situation, so I am going to have two virtual machines. Okay, these are the two virtual machines, VM1 and VM2, and they are part of availability zone 1. Let's say this is a AV zone 1, and this is part of AV zone 2. This is to provide data center level outages in the same region, and they are part of a subnet, and they are part of a VNet. So I'm going to say this is going to be your production VNet, prod-VNet, and it is in the East US location. And this is going to be your production, let's say, subnet is in, and let's say this is going to be a web subnet, and this is subnet 1. Okay, and this is going to be your web server 1, and this is going to be your web server 2. Okay, so now, and these machines are behind the load balancer. You can say this is an internal load balancer or external load balancer. Maybe let's say in this case, I'm going to use external load balancer, and this can be part of a traffic manager profile, because we also talk about the regional level outages, right? This can be a traffic manager with the failover as a, or priority as a, I would say priority as a profile category. So with this, what happens is whenever user is trying to access the application, the request goes to traffic manager, and it goes to the load balancer. From the load balancer, it goes to the virtual machines, and virtual machine, in case if one of the rack is failed, or physical server is down, you have another virtual machine which is available in the another region. Okay, so another data center within the same location, assuming this is your East West location. Okay, so this is to provide within the same region between the data center, your virtual machines are going to be highly available. Okay, in case if there's a outages at a compute side. As I can reminding you, if there is an issue at a storage side, there's no way to protect them because it's a disk. And you can also look for I mean there's nothing much I can we can do if it is a storage level for your virtual machine disk. Even if it is network level outages, you cannot do much about it. What we are focusing is about is compute side. If there is an outage at compute side, how you can protect, or how you can keep your virtual machines highly available. Okay, then, and as I said, in case if there is a regional level outage, if entire region is down, what you are going to do? You are going to use Azure Site Recovery. Let's say this is in a West US location. You are, because you cannot have the ASR or Azure Site Recovery as the same location as your virtual machine, because in the event of region level outages, your ASR also will not work if it is in the same location. That's why we keep the ASR in a different location than the source location. And if I choose Central US as my DR or disaster recovery location, so in the Central US location, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the load balancer. Okay, the same load balancer in advance. Just in case if something happened to the primary, the request will automatically route it to this secondary location. So see, basically, I'm just giving it high level, but there can be a firewall, and firewall will be connected to your internal load balancer. In this case, I'm taking external load balancer. Okay, so but usually you will not have the external load balancer connected to your traffic manager. Instead of that, you will have your virtual machines and or firewall devices that are connected to your traffic manager profile, and from that firewall devices you will be connected to your internal load balancer, and from the internal load balancer you will be connected to your backend resources. Here you will have your virtual network and you will have your subnet created. Okay, that's all. I mean, you will not have your virtual machines created in the DR location. So on the day of failover, day of the disaster recovery, you can just use the failover button on ASR. And when you do a failover for your virtual machines, and the VMs will be created in the DR location, and users will be automatically accessed from secondary location, which is a central US location. Okay, so that's how we provide high availability. And when I say failover, it just you cannot just click on failover. There's no option as such. You have to add the machines to the ASR. Then there will be a stages like enable replication. When you add virtual machines to uh, your ASR, enable replication job will be triggered, which means the replication will be starting from East US location to the Central US. In the Central US location, there will be a disk for each uh, VM. Let's say if source has the OS disk, there will be a ASR replica disk created for that OS disk with the prefix as -ASR replica. If you have a data disk, it will say data disk name -ASR replica. For each machine, the number of disks what you have in the source, the same number of disk will be created in the target location, and data will be synchronized to this ASR replica disk. Okay, so the once you enable the replication, the initial replication will be completed. We call it as IR. Once the initial replication is completed, your virtual machine will be in a protected status. Once it is protected, you will be able, the delta replication will be happening. So when I say delta replication, whatever the change is happening in the source will automatically synchronize to the target. It's like continuous replication. Okay, so then as in when the delta replication is happening, you will have your recovery points created. You can do the failover using this recovery point on the day of your East US location outage. When you do that, ASR is going to use the data that is in the ASR replica disk. It creates a new disk and create VMs, and your virtual machines will be online. It's very soon. With my experience, I've seen, it took just less than 15 minutes in the worst case. But in case if it is taking more than that, you might suspect that there could be some issue with the virtual machine creation process. It could be issue at a Microsoft Azure platform where there are no enough resource in the backend instances. You have to retry the failover operation for it to be successfully completed. Okay, so this is how you provide high availability for your virtual machines in the cloud environment. If somebody asks you, how can you ensure high availability for critical VM or application? You can just simply explain. In Azure, we have a concept of availability set and availability zone, which will help us to provide high availability for the VMs in case if there is a regional level outages happen, or maybe a data center level or a rack level outages happen. So you will have at least one virtual machine available to provide response to your application request, which means you have to have a two or more virtual machines which functions the same application or which runs the same application. And to distribute the traffic, they should be behind the load balancer, or there should be some system which will distribute the traffic to available machine. In case if there are two virtual machines and they are part of availability zone or availability set, if one machine is down, there should be some system which will identify the available server and route the request. Okay, so this will help us with the with the high availability solution in case if there is a data center level failures or you know, rack level or node level failure. In case if we look at the regional outages, let's say if entire region is down, we can use the ASR, we can perform the failover operation so that the VMs will be created in the DR location within couple of minutes. So we have this in our environment. We have the source as east US and so the DR as a central US location, and we use the ASR to replicate. It's a continuous replication process, and we do the test DRs occasionally to ensure that this replication in DR is working fine. So the architecture what we have is we have a traffic manager in place. Any user request that goes to traffic manager and it has the connectivity to the backend firewall, and the backend firewall in turn connect to the internal load balancer. Internal load balancer have the backend pool with the application servers or web servers. So it will route the traffic based on the load balancer rules what we have configured. In case if the primary region is down, so the traffic manager will try to route the request to the secondary endpoint, which is in central US location. So this is what you can explain if somebody asks you about this question, and you can also explain them, what is the planned maintenance and how we can handle them, how we can get notified. In the next video, I will try to explain you how we can get notified for any Azure outages or any planned maintenance, and how you can handle those planned maintenance. What is the process you can define or you can follow in case if you see an outage at Microsoft end. Thank you for watching. In the next video, I'm going to demonstrate about the other questions.